Whether you are already a multi-passionate being that follows your curiosity or you're someone that is very singular focused, I think it is important for everyone to have a plan B and to think about what they would do if life asked you to change or if you decided that you wanted to change. So for everyone listening to this, I want you to think about if there's a plan A in your life, if there's one path that you're like, this is stressing me out. Like if this doesn't happen, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And now ask yourself, what could a plan B look like that would still make you feel proud and good and successful and all the things that you want to feel? Because it's really important that we detach ourselves from thinking that our value and our worth is tied to our plan A going exactly the way that we want it to. Welcome to the Blue Rose Podcast. I'm your host, Becca Blue Rose, a runner, storyteller, and believer in creating a life that feels like your own. Some weeks it's just you and me, and other weeks I'm joined by women who are chasing their own version of a bold, unapologetic life. Together we explore what it really means to take risks and trust your own path. Hi guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I'm so happy you guys are here today. Today is going to be a good episode, so stick around. I mean, they're always good, but this is an episode that I'm pretty fired up about. And, I came home today and I'm not going to lie. I was super grumpy. Like, I was the type of grumpy that, like, you take a hot shower, you turn the lights off, you sit at the back of the shower, and you, like, try to zen out, you try to take deep breaths, and you try to calm yourself down, and you're, like, just trying to talk yourself out of the grumps, and then, eventually you're like, "Okay, I need to get out of the shower because my fingers are those little spongy situations, and I'm dehydrated, and I'm hot." And so you get out of the shower, and you put your comfy clothes on, and you sit on the couch for 5 minutes, and you're, like, still really, really grumpy, and there's, like, actually nothing that can be done about being grumpy, and you're like, "Well, I don't wanna do that, and I don't wanna do that, and I don't wanna do that," and, like, there's just, like, a list of 25 things that you could be doing, but you're like, "No, I just wanna sit, and I wanna be grumpy." And sometimes that's okay, sometimes you just need to sit in that emotion. And so that's how I felt today, guys. I was not gonna record a podcast. I have been so good this year where I shouldn't even say good. I have just been really trying to consistently put out an episode every single week, no matter what. I am just trying to keep the consistency going, keep the momentum going, because as we all know, once the momentum stops, it's hard to get it going again. And so for the past few years, I've been doing the podcast and I would miss like random weeks here and there, and there'd be like no reason for it. But it's like once you miss one week, it's so easy to miss another week. And so I was sitting on the couch though, and I was like, what am I even going to talk about today? Because I am so grumpy. No one is going to want to listen to me on the podcast today. Like all that's going to come out is something super grumpy. But then, you know what? I think I'm reminded over and over again that you sit down and even if nothing comes out, it's the process of committing to doing the work and just like sitting down in whatever mood you are in, regardless, and just giving it a go. And so I started working on my podcast. I didn't start with recording an episode. I started with reaching out to people and sending emails and working on my calendar and being like, okay, all of this stuff put me in a better mood because I started getting that momentum going. And so that's just your subtle reminder that even when you're grumpy or in a mood or sad or all these things and you don't know what to do, sometimes just picking something and doing it helps that energy move through. But anyways, that's not what we're here to talk about, guys. We're not here to talk about how grumpy I was today. We are talking about the power of a plan B. And if you know me, I have never been a planner, like ever in my entire life. I can think back to being even like a teenager. And I mean, like what teenager has a plan? Not many of them. But I mean, some of them do. And I'm looking back at like younger Becca, even in college, she just never really had a plan. I had an idea of maybe, what I wanted to do, but all through college, even when people were like, what do you want to do with your life? Or like, what do you see happening? And I'm always like, I don't know. We're just going to see where the wind takes me. And, like, I just kind of like did things based on feelings and emotions and energies. And I definitely feel like I am someone that sometimes responds to the world. Sometimes it's like, well, opportunities will arise and they will. And like one door closes, one opens. And I fully believe that. And granted, maybe I wasn't necessarily in a position to plan. And sometimes we're not, right? Like sometimes you're like, I actually don't have any idea what my life is going to look like in the next 6 months. And so it's like, really hard to plan. And I feel like maybe that was the constant place I was sitting in where I was like, I just simply don't know. And now maybe that I'm a little more stable, I feel like I've been a little better at planning. And if you haven't listened to the calendar episode, you know me. I love my calendar now. I have a big calendar that shows me the entire year, and I've been planning, right? And I love that. I really do. But something that's been coming up recently is having a plan B. So maybe my calendar is like my plan A. If everything went to plan this year, that is my plan A. That is what I want to do. And that's great. But then what happens when life happens and like that doesn't work out? And I'm in this space right now where I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. Maybe you have some friends that are unemployed, or maybe you have some people in your life that just don't really know what their next move is. Maybe that dream trip that they wanted to take got canceled, or whatever it is. I'm going to stick with the job analogy right now because I think that a lot of people can relate to that. But there's quite a few people in my life that I know that are searching for a job and maybe have been for a long time. And it's not their fault, right? Like the world is the way it is, and we're not going to get political on this podcast, but the world is the way it is right now, and things are difficult and tough. And finding a job, no matter what period of life it is, it's just a difficult thing to do. And it takes a lot of time and energy and effort. And something that I heard on the Mel Robbins podcast was, if life forced you to change, what would you do? And this is my favorite question right now because I asked myself that question in a lot of areas of my life, and I had an answer for every single one of them. If I was forced to change my career, I would go be a baker. Like I applied to be a cinnamon roll baker the other day. I would go work at a coffee shop. I would try to trail run guide. I would go work at a bookstore. I would write a book. And I'm not saying that those are all the most like lucrative things and that they would give me money right off the bat. But what I'm realizing is sometimes people are so stuck in their plan A. They had this career path. They really wanted this, and then maybe, yeah, they got laid off, or maybe they decided, I hate this and I don't want to do this, but I feel like I have to do it for the rest of my life because I spent a crap ton of money going to school for it. So now I like have to continue down this path. And I think that I have always felt kind of detached from whatever I've done as a career. Like I have just never felt like what I do for money is, one, the most interesting thing about me, two, the most important thing about me, and three, something I felt like I could never change. And the more I've seen people at this age, the more I feel like that's not the case for a lot of people. And that's not a bad thing. Until it kind of is, right? Because then if the world forces you to change, well, you're like, what do I do now? And inevitably, the world will probably force you to change at some point. Now, we can all hope that we don't get laid off, that we don't end up hating our career, that we don't end up moving and not being able to find a job, right? Like, we all hope that doesn't happen. But what if it did? And I love this question because for the longest time, I felt like having a plan B meant that I was an absolute failure. I was like, I have one plan and I have one idea, and maybe I don't even have any plan, right? But the first thing that comes to my mind is like, that's what I want to do. And if it doesn't happen in that exact way, when I want it to, and how I want it to, I'm a failure because that was the plan, right? Like, I studied journalism in college. I have not once worked for a news station or really exercised my journalism degree in a whole lot of ways. And I think about that and I'm like, well, if my only identity was me being attached to being a writer, that would feel like a really big problem considering that's just like simply not what I'm doing. And I always envisioned myself, like, working in, like, a big city at, like, a fancy newspaper in, like, a newsroom in a cubicle, like, you see in all the movies, like, that is what I imagined for myself, and, like, I sit here now and cringe at that idea, but if that was the only thing I could think of to do, like, that would have been a really big problem, and I realize now that having a plan B is not a failure, it just takes the stakes down such a notch. The people I know that are looking for a job, and I don't say this with any shade. I think if you don't want to choose a job outside of your career field, you think it's maybe not worth your time, maybe not worth your energy, you're not going to be getting paid a lot, it doesn't help you move forward in any way. That is totally fine. I have a completely different perspective on that. And I would take a job at a coffee shop or I would do something like fun in the meantime. And now I get it if like, you say you lost your job or you can't find a job and then you're like, well, like I need to because I need to pay my bills or I need to do whatever it is, right? It's like that is your next move and that is what you really want. I think that there's a balance of like looking for it, finding it, working on it, applying for jobs, and then also taking advantage of that time and not feeling so much pressure and anxiety around staying in that career path, having a backup plan of like, yeah, if worst comes to worst, like I would go do X if I lost my job. Worst comes to worst, I would go do X if I couldn't find a job immediately. It's so easy to just get so tunnel vision on one thing and one path when you don't even know what another path could offer you. And there's something to be said again, this is so contextual where, like, there's so many caveats and, like, there's a very specific person that, yes, maybe tunnel vision and, like, working towards that goal, but I am talking to the people that, like, rely so heavily on their plan A that, like, they freeze and kind of, like, melt away when the plan doesn't work out. Another example of this, I have 2 other examples, right, that are maybe less than a job because a job can feel kind of overwhelming sometimes, right? So, the first time I ran a marathon, I was signed up to run the Eiger Ultra Trail Marathon in Switzerland, and I thought, "How cool would it be to run my first marathon up a mountain in Switzerland?" Like, that is the coolest thing ever. I wanna do that, right? That was my plan A. And then all of these outside things that I couldn't really control happened, and I kind of found myself being like, "I kinda need to go back to the US, but I kinda need to run this marathon, but there's, like, 3 weeks in between, and I don't really know what I'm gonna do for those 3 weeks because I'm out of money. I don't really have a place to stay. So, like, I think I gotta go home." And at the time, I was pretty bummed about that, and I felt really I did feel like a failure, like, I felt like, "Oh my god, I'm leaving." Like, the one of the main reasons I wanted to come to Switzerland was, like, I wanna run this marathon, and I was training for it, and I felt like such a failure. I felt like, "What the heck? What do you mean you're gonna go home 3 weeks before the marathon? You've been here all summer, and you've been training for it, and you've skipped out on other fun things because of this marathon. Like, what do you mean you're going home?" And it took me a minute to kinda grapple with that, and then I kind of landed back in the US, and I was like, why don't I just run a marathon in the US? And yes, it wasn't the Swiss Alps and it wasn't up a mountain. It was a completely flat trail marathon in Washington. And I got to see 2 of my best friends though, and it was incredible. And they came to the finish line and it was amazing and it was super fun. And I still ran the marathon. And maybe that was like my motivation to get into trail running while I was in Switzerland to have all the experiences that I had. And then I slowly found my way to this other plan that, yes, it wasn't my plan A, but the plan B turned out just amazing, and I still accomplished the overall goal, which was running a marathon. Another example of this is, have you ever had a dream trip? Have you ever had a trip that you're just like, I really want to do this trip at this time in this way? And it just kind of doesn't work out. You're like, you do all the planning. And so in my mind, this year, I really wanted to go to Patagonia. It was like my dream. It's like the one place I want to go. And I started doing all the research and I started kind of calculating the numbers and figuring out the logistics and the timing and all of the things. And it just kind of felt like really frictiony, like it just wasn't working. And if I didn't have 10 other trips or 10 other places that I wanted to go on my trip list, I would have felt really disappointed and maybe I just wouldn't have taken a trip at all. Maybe I would have been like, it's that trip or it's no trip. And I get it. I am such a person that is like, I want it my way and I want my dream and I don't want to feel like I'm giving up on my dream or giving away any semblance of my dreams. Like I want all the pieces of my dreams to be there. But I had a friend once say to me, what if the things that we want, that we dream about, that we desire, that we expect aren't actually what we need and aren't actually what is good for us? And that stuck with me because sometimes we have these ideas and we have these plans and we have these expectations, and man, are expectations the thief of joy. And everyone knows that, right? It's not news to anyone. And what if that plan A, those big dreams, like aren't actually sometimes the things that are good for us, and actually the way that things happen and unfold in ways that we couldn't have expected are actually what is good for us, right? Like, what if you lost the job and then you had a plan B, plan C, plan D, and you tried all of them and you explored them, and before you even know it, you're on a completely different path that you could have never even dreamed of? What if you have a dream trip and it just falls through the cracks and you have to pivot and you have to go somewhere new that you never even would have thought of to go this year, and then it ends up being the best 2 weeks of your life because it was so different than what you were expecting? What if you had 3, 4, 5 plans to pivot? What if you diversified your identity and didn't put all your eggs in one basket, right? It's the same thing if you only identify. Actually, this is a really good example. If I only identified as a trail runner and I got injured, we would have such a big problem. If I only trail run and I don't do anything else, and then suddenly that got taken away from me, what would I do? Right? And sometimes we just lock ourselves into these identities and we don't let ourselves explore other areas. And then it kind of just feels like any setback, any pivot is like this failure or this existential crisis. And granted, there are some people that are like so single track focused that that works for them. And then when it rains, it pours, and then they have to figure it out, right? If the world forces you to change, you'll have to figure it out. But what if you were a little more prepared to figure it out and you allowed yourself to explore your curiosity and explore different avenues for a career and explore different hobbies and allow yourself to have 10 trips on that dream list and have 10 careers and 10 hobbies? Your worth is not defined by the one thing that you set out to do 5 years ago. Like, you're always allowed to change. And what fun is life without experimenting and trying new things and giving yourself the opportunity to take different paths at different parts of life and to pivot and to change and to express different parts of your identity? You know, I've said this on the podcast so many times, but like, just because right now I'm interested in running and ultra marathons does not mean in 5 years I will not be like bike packing across New Zealand, or doesn't mean I won't be like, I don't know, like a ping pong player. I'm literally never going to be a ping pong player. That was a really poor example, but you get the point that, like, just because I'm into something right now doesn't mean I'm going to be into it 2 years from now, 1 year from now, 2 months from now. Who knows? Like, you never know. And I don't think being multi-passionate is being distracted. I truly think it's being resilient. I, for the longest time, thought that chasing my curiosity and trying new things and learning new hobbies and dipping my toes into everything and not feeling like I have to make it my identity, right? Because, like, right now I'm taking pottery classes. It's a 6-week class and then I'm done. I am not going to be a potter. I made a bowl and a cup and that was cool. I've taken singing lessons. I've taken improv classes. I've tried running. I've tried bike packing. I've gotten into cycling. I've tried podcasting. I've tried writing. Like, I've tried so many different things. I've tried baking. I tried being a barista. Like, I've worked in marketing. I've worked in communications. I've worked as a raft guide. Like, I've worked at a snow cone place. Really random things. And I think that just gives you so many skill sets to be like, yeah, whatever life throws at me, I'm going to be able to pivot. Like, I'm going to be able to try something else. And for those of you that are listening to this and you're like, Becca, I am a single track kind of woman. Like, I am a one lane. Like, this is my career. This is my hobby, right? I get that. I totally get that. Like, I have had friends who have known what they wanted to do since we were in high school. They went to college, they went to grad school, they know exactly what they wanted to do. That's amazing. And it never hurts to exercise your curiosity muscle because everyone, even if you are someone, and I truly believe this, even if you are someone that is single lane focused and you have one goal in life, right? I still think that every so often you will get like the curiosity bug. You'll be like, well, if I wasn't doing this, I would do this. Or I'm interested in that, but I don't have time. That sounds fun, but I don't have the money for that right now. And I truly believe that everyone has that, where the curiosity will kind of snip in, and then you'll be like, I don't have time. I don't have money. I can't do that. I'm focused on this thing, right? So even for my people that are single focused, the curiosity is there. Like, if you're someone that has goals and likes to learn and has a plan, odds are sometimes you're like, oh, but I wonder what if this, and I wonder what if this. But you're so focused on what you're doing that you don't allow yourself to explore that curiosity. And now I want to say, there's nothing wrong with that. That type of single focus can get you places that you couldn't even imagine. Like, it's so awesome to be so focused and so on a path that you are excited about. And that is incredible. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying stop that focus. I'm just saying that sometimes, like every so often, it can be so good for you to exercise that curiosity muscle and allow yourself to explore different options because at some point, life will ask you to redirect yourself. And if you have absolutely no idea how to do that and absolutely no idea how to pivot, that is going to feel like a much bigger life crisis than it needs to be. Whether you are already a multi-passionate being that follows your curiosity or you're someone that is very singular focused, it is important for everyone to have a plan B and to think about what they would do if life asked you to change or if you decided that you wanted to change. So for everyone listening to this, I want you to think about if there's a plan A in your life, if there's one path that you're like, this is stressing me out. Like, if this doesn't happen, I don't know what I'm going to do. And now ask yourself, what could a plan B look like that would still make you feel proud and good and successful and all the things that you want to feel? Because it's really important that we detach ourselves from thinking that our value and our worth is tied to our plan A going exactly the way that we want it to. It's really cool when you can step back and be like, going back to the job example, it's really cool when you can step back and, apply for something and be like, I didn't get it. Great. Not for me. Or hope for something like a partnership or a creative project or something to work out, right? Like it can be really cool to be like, oh, okay, that didn't work out. Not for me. What's next? And have the energy of like not desperation, but just like, cool, I tried, I applied, I did what I needed to do, and it didn't work out. And so now I'm going to move on to the next thing because it's not about me. That just wasn't the door that I'm supposed to go down. And that is okay. So I'll ask you one more time. If your plan A doesn't work out, what is your plan B? If life asks you to change, asks you to do something else, if something doesn't work out for you, what is your pivot? What are you going to do instead? And just remember that a pivot isn't bad, it isn't negative. It's just a way that you can explore a different part of yourself and go down a path that maybe you weren't expecting. And sometimes expectations are not the best because they just sometimes don't lead us to where we want to go. All right, guys, that is what I have for you this week. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. And I'm no longer grumpy, so we're winning. All right, guys, have a good night. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Blue Rose Podcast. If you love this episode, please hit follow, leave a review, or send it to a friend who's building their own bold life. Keep trusting yourself, and I'll see you next week.